that I'm blessed. It's a few L's and millions, so turn that loss to a...
For those of you that don't know Shawn Johnston, she is a plant medicine facilitator. I've had a personal experience with her, and but the results that I have seen through this experience, I think is worth sharing with people, because I think there are a lot of people out there that struggle with vices, that struggle with addiction, and there's a whole other world out there that I think is there's a lot more research today than there was even a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, but there's still almost a little bit of a fear around plant medicine and how it can really impact somebody's life. And I think that fear really comes from just not understanding, not knowing. One of the documentaries we were watching, it talked about how there was a ton of research being done on LSD, on psilocybin back in and before the 1960s. And then I think it was, my year might be off, but around 1970, all of a sudden, all the research stopped. The big war on drugs started. And, they would showcase these events of 1 out of a million people that would go crazy and jump off a bridge and kill themselves. And that's what they were using for propaganda to suggest that these were dangerous substances. Now, of course, a lot of that has changed. I know in the state of Colorado, psilocybin has been voted as currently being decriminalized, potentially, and maybe you could talk more about that. But I'm super, super excited to have you here. And I think maybe we'll start just, for those of you that don't know my personal story, I've struggled with addiction for 20 years, and a lot of this started because I was in sports. I was in gymnastics as a kid. I was in martial arts, and I sustained multiple neck injuries. But in my teens, I would go to doctors and they would prescribe, at the time, Vicodin. And of course, that led to Oxycontin eventually. And it's just something that I've struggled with. It's totally ruined parts of my life. But also, I think that I'm blessed and grateful that I have struggled with this, because it's allowed me to learn a lot more about myself. And so my wife was talking to her brother, who lives in Chile, who's a big proponent for plant medicine and is familiar with a lot of the different modalities out there. And he said, you have to have Derek try this stuff called Kambo. And she says, okay, I'm willing to try anything at this point, but where the hell do I find somebody that can help with Kambo? I mean, this is something that comes from a frog. And, how do I find somebody that knows what they're doing, that can keep Derek safe, that really can explain to me what the process is? And so he did some research and found Shawn. And I think you're one of just a few people in the state of Colorado that actually does this. And so I know that, you might feel like there's a little bit of risk for you being here today, just because I know that there is still things in motion with a lot of this. But I'm grateful that you're here willing to talk freely about it, because I think it can really help a lot of people. And so what I would ask, as you're listening to this, just keep an open mind, right? And do your own research on it. If you're looking for a great source that can really get granular and detailed, I would highly, highly recommend you reaching out to Shawn just to learn more. It might not be you. It could be your spouse. It could be a child. It could be a family member. I was just at the gym the other day, and there was this kid in the sauna I was talking to, and he says, yeah, I have to go back to California tomorrow. He says, my brother just died. And I said, oh my gosh, what happened? And he says, well, he was struggling with addiction and he overdosed.
Yeah.
And it's just, you hear these stories and it's become more frequent, the opioid crisis that has been taking place, fentanyl coming into our country. This is a big problem. And I think that we're starting to be more accepting with people that struggle with this, and that struggle with mental health, but there's still, I feel like there is still an element of kind of stay away from me. I don't want to get too close to that, right? Because let's face it, when people are deep in addiction, they isolate, they're selfish, they are obsessive, they're compulsive, they're in denial, they're delusional in some cases, and they go out of their way to do things to serve them. And oftentimes, as a result, it ends up hurting themselves and the people that they love. So I just wanted to share a little bit of context here. And anyway, so Shawn, why don't you start just by telling us a little bit about, what did you do before you found plant medicine? Because I know you were living a totally different life. Yeah. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that. And then how were you exposed to it? And then how did you end up realizing that I'm a healer and I'm meant to do this?
So for my career, I was an executive assistant. I was an executive assistant for a bank, for the government, and I worked that for 38 years. Mm-hmm. And during the pandemic, we all went to working from home. And when I did that, I realized people have given a lot of my time. Mm-hmm. During the pandemic, I had a lot of things happen. I was stuck in Creede, Colorado for about 3 months because I couldn't travel. I worked for the state, and it's the whole long story about, the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And when I got back to Denver, I realized that my daughter had relapsed and gone to heroin.
Did she start using painkillers or?
No, she went to heroin.
Straight to heroin.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. She was recovered from meth for 6 years.
Okay.
And the pandemic shut everything down. She was in nursing school. They shut that down. She was a cosmetologist. They shut that down. She was the age of a vector. She couldn't work. She lost her job. A lot of things happened. And I wasn't there for 3 months. And I was one of those people that helped support with her daughter. She was working really hard to get to the point where she would be a nurse and doing what she wanted to do. Amazing. She did amazing. And, just sometimes people fall into that. And for a long time, I had that judgmental. Why can't you just stop? Why can't you just stop this? Don't you see this girl that wants to spend time with you? Your baby. I mean, I was angry. Mm-hmm. And
one thing I found really fascinating, by the way, I just want to say this. When I learned that you've never taken a drug.
Yeah.
You shared that and I go, what?
Yeah.
How is that really?
Yeah.
How is that possible? I think that's really
a little
amazing.
bit, in high school, maybe I smoked a little bit of pot and then, I might have tried cocaine, but I didn't do that very long. Maybe a week. I just was like, I can't afford this. And I never really smoked pot or weed until, it became legal. I'm pretty much, I get heart palpitations when I jaywalk. So people tease me, but it's by the book on a lot of stuff. And so when you're talking about Kambo, and Kambo's legal everywhere. There's nothing holding that back. It's patented and it's in the hands of the right people.
Tell us what Kambo is, or Kambo as it's sometimes called.
Yeah.
For people that don't know what that is or they've never heard of it, they're going, what the hell is Kambo? I've never heard of that before.
It comes from a frog in the Amazon, and this frog lives at the top of the canopy. He's the only animal that can live up there because it's so septic. And so he produces these peptides that protect him from everything. So there's antibiotic, antiseptic, anti-inflammatory, antidepressant. It helps with PTSD. It has like 4,000 times the power of morphine, but there's no narcotics in it. So these peptides that he produces, we collect those. We're all born with those. But as we age, they slough off of our cells. And as our cells, go through life, they get trauma on them. And it bends the cell a little bit. And so those cells that are bent don't go through the bloodstream very well. So there's autoimmunes that'll attach to that cell and make it circular again. And then that cell reads as a circular cell, and it reproduces like that. And so Kambo, what it does is you put it on the skin where I burn a gate, and there's a little viscous fluid that comes up, like if you'd scraped your skin. And Kambo attaches to that. And it warms up your blood from the tip of your toes to the top of your head. And so it's just getting friendly with your blood and making sure that it's doing what it needs to. So your body's warming up. It could get cold. You could start shaking. And then the next thing that happens is called vasodilation. And so once that blood reaches the top of your head, it starts pounding against your veins and arteries. And it pounds those cells back into regular shape and knocks those autoimmunes off. So it takes a little while. It depends on what the autoimmune is, but it's very helpful. And it's a process that takes about 20 minutes, and you can recover pretty quickly. Go on with your day. I mean, I've served you. It's amazing stuff. And if you teach your client how to go through that process on that first session, they know what's going to happen. And if they get more dots, then they know how much to expect.
You know, I think that's one of the fears that people have with a lot of, plant medicine or just really anything that they're not familiar with. You know, you think about this kind of construct with the medical industry and the pharmaceutical industry, and it's this process that we all have bought into as like, I'm sick, I go to the doctor knows what they're doing because they went to school for so many years, and they're gonna tell me to take something, right? Or they're gonna try to treat it or send me to a specialist. But it's just the way sort of we've operated forever. And so now you enter something like Kambo from a frog in the Amazon rainforest, and people are like, what if I take too much? Can I overdose? Is it going to kill me? What, you explain this vasodilation and how you can start pounding. The experience that I had was very similar to trying to detox with, I'm forgetting the name of this stuff. It's going to come to me, but it's in a lot of vitamins. Damn it, I'm forgetting what the hell the name of this stuff is. Anyway, but yeah, just really, really hot, really cold. I was shaking.
Niacin?
Yeah, niacin, that's it. Thank you. I forgot the name. Yeah, so niacin, if you take elevated amounts of niacin, you'll feel that. It's almost, and there's niacin in a lot of pre-workouts. So if you ever take a pre-workout and go to the gym and you feel that sort of like hot flush, tingly sensation, there's kind of an element of that with Kambo. Who would you say is like a good candidate for Kambo? And I don't know if there's any, proof or research that says it cures anything, but who's like the ideal candidate for it, and who should consider learning more about it?
Well, I can tell you the ideal candidate that is the person that's not ideal is someone that's had some heart issues, like a heart attack and heart surgery, because it does, it does push the blood through your heart like that. My honest opinion is that anybody that's capable of having Kambo should. Like, honestly, it's very healing. And it's intuitive to the point where if you're coming in because you're sad, you're going to find something to be happy about. One of the things that you were talking about with doctors and stuff, you can go in and get a pill and they say it's going to take it away and everything. But a good question to ask your doctor is, do you take this? Because I can guarantee you any of the medicines that I serve, I've taken. I've used them. I know what it's going to happen. I can at least give you a guideline, and I'm there the whole time. I'm with you the whole time. So I don't recommend people doing this alone on their own. This is not something that you just choose to do by yourself. And it's sometimes on the internet you can go get a kit, and but if you don't know what you're doing, you could hurt yourself. And so even if you choose not to have someone, you should at least call a practitioner that can answer some questions, honestly, because they're not out to harm you.
And what's the end result of somebody that takes Kambo? Like, what is the effect or the outcome, right? Like with a drug, that you're taking it, and at least initially, right? Like if you take an anti-anxiety, the idea is you're going to not be as anxious, right? If you take a painkiller, it's going to get rid of the pain. Now, ultimately that turns into a poison, but what's the result or the effect of Kambo after you've taken it?
It stays in your system for 3 weeks, and it just pulls when you need it. So it like I said, it's intuitive. Let's say that you, for example, a few weeks ago, after I served you, I did Kambo for myself because, it's good for me to heal that way. And then a few days later, I got a tattoo where tattoos kind of hurt, but it didn't hurt as much. And it's, you get a tattoo on your elbow, there's bones there and it hurts. But so the end result of Kambo, I mean, I always tell people is love. You learn to love. It breaks your blood-brain barrier. It helps you think about things a little differently. It helps you see people a little bit differently. Opens up your mind to different ideas. Like when I was more judgmental with my daughter, after I did Ibogaine, I gained a lot of compassion because I realized people don't want to be in this position. That's not where they want to be. Who would want to do that? Even if in the beginning they did. But by the time they're at the point where they've realized that, everybody's given up. So the blessing is that there are people like you that have people that care enough to say, hey, let's do this. And your brother-in-law just said, hey, you need Kambo, and you ended up in Ibogaine, and life changed in a matter of 8 weeks.
Yeah.
8 weeks.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely spectacular. And I think, a lot of the research out there, a personal experience I had with an intervention, going to a rehab facility, the second I came out, I relapsed. I think a lot of people that go to rehab, it's not self-inflicted. Right? They're getting pressure from family or friends or somebody that cares about them and really wants them to get better, but they don't know another way. So they figure, well, let's go put them in front of a bunch of doctors or get them isolated, get them involved in a 12-step scenario so they can, so that they can get better. And I think people's hearts are in the right place. The problem is if it's not of their own volition, if it's not something that they're ready for, the reality is as soon as they get out, they weren't ready for it, and it was from somebody else forcing them to do it or asking for them to do it. And so oftentimes you'll see a lot of people relapse right after getting out of a rehab facility.
Right. It's not like they don't in every other situation too.
Sure.
But then, you want to make sure you find a practitioner or someone that's going to support you through that part of it. My phone, I'm usually 24/7. Just let my clients know, you're not always going to feel like you want to jump off of a bridge at 2 p.m. You know what I mean? And it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to say, I'm not okay.
One thing that I was really impressed with your approach, and, we had this date for me to go through this Ibogaine process, and we'll talk about Ibogaine here in a second, but that date was a month out, right? And so just you checking in with me. I mean, you were checking in with me basically on a daily basis. How you doing? Do you need anything? How you feeling? Giving me encouragement, because, that month that leads up to that, there's a lot going through your head.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And for somebody that is struggling with addiction, it's very easy during that time to maybe go back to it. But it was really helpful that you were there to kind of see me through that. And I felt super supported through that process. What about, can you talk a little bit about Hapé, Sananga?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So when I serve Kambo, the first medicine that I serve is called Hapé, or Rapé. It's a tobacco, and it's mixed with a lot of stuff that they bring from the Amazon or wherever they make the medicine. And it's a tobacco that I blow into your nostrils. And what it does is it goes in and it clears that cavity. I explain it to clients, and I try to help people understand it in more of a layman's term. So that Hapé attaches to all that mucus that's up in your head. And that mucus holds those ruminating thoughts and beliefs. And it's kind of hard to clear all that out when you're just sitting all day long. So if you do a little bit of Hapé and it clears that out, it helps your whole body just calm down. It puts clients in what I call a premeditative state. And it helps people because you are going to be anxious when you go into a plant medicine situation. Trust me. It sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, just come on in and I'll burn your skin and put some stuff on you. You're going to throw up a little bit and then take a nap. You know, and I have clients going, lady, I am not taking a nap in your house.
Yeah.
But, you know, the thing is, when you get through that process, you know, all that's on you. You're like, I don't know if I can do it. Then you realize after you have some Hapé, okay, I don't feel so bad. The next medicine that I serve is called Sananga, and it's an eye drop. It comes from a shrub in the Amazon, and it's mixed with the river water from the Amazon River, and that water's hot. And so this is a really, really painful, or it burns your eyes. It burns, right? And it's a little bit, it takes your breath away a little bit. But you teach your client to breathe through that part of it and start to relax. And then it helps them, you know, it helps them relax all the way down to their toes. And when they're ready to open their eyes, because the medicine doesn't let you open your eyes until you're ready, all that stuff that's on the top of your eyes, that's been fogging your eyes, clears off. It just pours out the corners of your eyes.
It's almost like the calm before the storm before the calm in this case, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's something where I mean, I hate to say it like this because I don't want to deter people, but it's like you feel like your eyes are bleeding. I mean, it's like it is. It's so intense that, at least from my experience, it was these really intense breaths, right? But then what happens is over the course of probably 15 minutes, would you say?
Maybe, yeah.
Plus or minus, is it goes from this level of intensity, this level of like, am I going to be able to see again? There's a sandy, gritty feeling. I mean, you cannot open your eyes for a short period of time. And during that time, it is painful, but then it starts to alleviate. Yeah. Then it starts to dissipate. And it gets to a point where you can then open your eyes. Not only are you clear, you have a level of awareness that's more expansive. And I remember laying there just laughing. Do you remember that? I was just laughing. Like I felt so just good and light and lighthearted, and for some reason shit was funny. I wasn't even, it's not like you were telling jokes. It was just I was laughing. There was this inner joy and peace. That stuff is so powerful, but it's one of those things where it's like, God, it'd be tough. I feel like it'd be tough for me to do that every day, even though it would be super beneficial for me to do every day.
It's best known for its ability to improve your vision. And it clears your pineal gland so that you can see better in all ways. But if you do it for a 21-day thing, of course it gets easier. As you know, with Kambo, after you do it a couple times, it gets a little easier because you know what to expect. You know what
to expect is the thing.
Right. And then you're in the middle of your Sananga 21 day and you're like, I'm so grateful for this. I can't wait to do them because it helps so much.
Well, I think that's it, is you go through this, you go through it initially with some fear, with some hesitation, maybe some anxiety. I always felt safe. I knew I was okay because I knew you were there and you had experienced it. You had done this with other clients of yours. But you get to the other side, even with Hapé, it's like, I mean, just same kind of thing. It creates this clarity and vision because it's clearing the sinuses. But the thought I had initially right after doing Sananga was, dude, everybody has to do this. Everybody should experience this. This is crazy. It's crazy that it's not more known and it's not more talked about.
Well, now that they have the proposition that passed, that these decriminalized these medicines that I serve, the Ibogaine and all that, people are going to get a lot more information. That there's just not a safe way to get the information out there.
Sure.
That you can trust practitioners.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like anybody. If you're going to choose a doctor or a lawyer or something, you're going to go down the line and find out.
For sure.
And, you should ask. If I don't serve a medicine that you want to try, ask me. I probably know a practitioner that I trust. And those are the best people to go to, because if you trust your first practitioner, they have a group of people with them that...
The other thing that I think definitely made my wife feel a little bit more comfortable, and I guess just because of how we're taught, is that you have a partner, you have a woman that you kind of sometimes will do this together with. That is she an MD or
she's
RN?
She's a PA.
She's a PA. Okay.
Yeah.
So, to have that individual that's kind of on the medical side of things, it just gives you a sense of like, okay, this is being looked at from both philosophy, both sides of the philosophy on this.
She's amazing. And we are colleagues. We talk together about our clients, and we're collecting the case studies so people can say, hey, does this work? I have 17 clients you can talk to. Every single one of them is going to say the same thing. It doesn't matter what medicine, they're in that space.
So let's talk a little bit about psilocybin.
Okay.
If you're okay with that.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about Ibogaine
Sure.
as well. So, and we never really wrapped up with how you kind of how you became this practitioner.
Oh, yeah. And so I started, in August of 2019, I was in a relationship, and he texted me that he wanted a separation, and I just obliged. So my life changed quite a bit. I had moved and all that kind of stuff. But in that end part of August is when the first time I tried Kambo. And it was served to me a little differently than Tribal Detox serves it. And so it was a little scary, but I went through it. And I thought to myself during Kambo, which everybody does, what the hell was I thinking? You're sitting there going, what am I doing? But honestly, I walked out after an hour and a half and went, I can't believe I've never done anything like this before. Like, I wasn't worried. I was in the middle of turmoil, and it didn't matter. I could do this, I can do this. I can do hard things. I just did Kambo. So
how is it done differently?
There's another type of Kambo serve that they serve a gallon of water prior.
Okay.
And it's just a little bit, it's just a little bit more risky, in my opinion, or, how I've learned. The thing that causes problems with Kambo, people worry about dying and stuff like that. It's called hyponatremia, when you have too much water on board, and then you just kind of...
Because of the purge?
And it's not purging, it's just your body's just filled with too much water. You don't want that much water. A gallon of water is a lot of water.
That's a lot.
3/4 of a liter of water is plenty for Kambo. If you're going to purge, if you need more water, I can serve it to you during the time, but it's less recovery time. It doesn't hurt you so much. Anyway.
It's just not necessary.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I continued to do that during 2019 when I was here in Denver, and then when I went back to Creed, I couldn't do Kambo. There were things, and they, the people that served Kambo there didn't want to serve Kambo because of all the restrictions of COVID. Safety is always most important. Okay. And it was very, it was very new. Everything was new with that pandemic of what you could and couldn't do. And
sure.
Whether it made sense or not. And so when I got back home, and I realized that my daughter had relapsed, I freaked out, really, really freaked out. And I took custody of my granddaughter. And then it was hard to work. It's hard to work when you have to teach a kid school, work at home, take care of the house, and worry about whether your daughter's going to be here the next day or not. And there aren't a lot of people that you're going to talk to. Because having a child who's an addict or a user is kind of a stigma, and then people are just like, I don't know what to tell you. I would just give her up. And I'm like, well, it took me so long to get her here. I don't really want to give her up. I love her. She's not the person you see right here. That's another part of that. People see the bad side of it. But, those things that you're talking about that change, those change when you do plant medicine. And it's different. I don't know how to explain it, but you don't go back into that.
Yeah.
Into that dark side, you know? Like,
yeah,
that part of it.
Yeah. Well, you've been exposed to something so unique and so different and original that I think, and we started touching on psilocybin, but it's one of those things where it's like for somebody that's had that experience, they know. For somebody that hasn't had the experience, do you feel like it's different for everybody, the experience? I feel like, but are there similarities? I feel like, so when I had a psilocybin experience, it was realizing who I am intended to be as a man. It was love. It was connection. It was me feeling, and it wasn't like a visual form of seeing, but it was me experiencing almost myself as a child, and being able to tell myself that it's okay without judgment and forgiveness. And, you know, and what I've learned about addiction is that really what the addict craves is connection. That's really what's missing, is connection. So they take the drug to because it makes them feel something. What they want to feel is connection, but ultimately it leads to isolation and desperation in a lot of cases. But yeah, talk to us a little bit about psilocybin and the benefits of that. And are you up to date with what's happening in, I don't know if it's just Colorado or if it's nationally? Is this something that will become legal, like where you can buy it in a shop like marijuana?
Psilocybin? I would hope not.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's not, I don't think that's the way to go, you know?
It's not the intention of it.
No, not at all. You know, when they make it to the point where it's legal, or where it's, you're going to have people that produce this. You know, I have a great farmer that makes all my medicine. I don't ever have to worry about it. It's the most beautiful medicine ever. And so you're not going to get that. And it's important when you're growing mushrooms that you have a lot of love going into them. We don't want a big facility with just filled with stuff and people just getting what they, you know, it's just
to make money.
Yeah. Because I don't think it's worked out. I don't think it'll work out that way. The part of it is that we don't want to have people who don't know what they're doing. I mean, you really have to have some experience behind what you're doing. Psilocybin is not dangerous, you know, but it should be understood. It should be understood, and people have done it. And like you were saying, years and years ago, people were waking up, and that's why they made it illegal.
Just saying, seeing the benefits of it. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
By waking up? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like
they were fighting back. They saw what was going on. I mean, and then during the pandemic, people also had time to sit and think, and they see they saw what's going on. Just like I said, so I lost my job, went to school for a Kambo, and realized this is what I want to do. But I was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And my instructor said, all you need is a website and business cards. So that's what I did. And it's just grown that way. People that want to do these things will find the right people. It's just, it's almost like we saw on the video, on the documentary. There is a net below us that connects us, interconnected. You know, your brother-in-law found me from Chile so that you could get better. It's just someone knowing something somewhere else that's going to share that information. It's about love. So this medicine, all these medicines teach you love. Love on a different level, a different vibration. The medicines that they give you in Western medicine, they shut you off. So just like you're saying, you wanted connection, but that medicine, that drug that you were taking was shutting you off. Those antidepressants and stuff, they're blocking something. so that when people start doing psilocybin, they may or may not like it because they're feeling things. And when people come out of all of that, the drugs and things, they start to feel, and that's the hard part. So we teach them that feelings are okay, that we're going to get to that inner child. We're going to find out what makes that inner child feel good. That's why we're doing this. Because what we were doing with the other medicines, we're blocking that child.
I feel like it's like, how can we create a happy medium? Because I think like decriminalizing it or making it legal, I think there could be a big benefit to that. But I think making it just widespread available, I think...
Well, that's not going to happen.
Not so much.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to get the medicine. Only people who serve Kambo can get Kambo. You can buy it over the internet, I think, somewhat, but I wouldn't necessarily trust that. The medicine that I get, I know exactly where it comes from. Every piece of medicine that I serve. So I know it's safe. I don't, because there can be anything in anything.
There's a lot of conversation right now about microdosing. Okay, and I think it's probably different for everybody. I think that microdosing has served me for...
Microdosing psilocybin.
Psilocybin, yep. Microdosing psilocybin has served me for a period of time. But for me, being able to... And I don't know if it necessarily needs to be a hero dose, which is what, 5 grams?
Heroic dose is 5 and above.
5 and above, okay. And is that based on body weight?
No.
No?
Not necessarily.
Okay. Right, it's just different for everybody. Yeah. So how would you determine how much somebody takes?
Well, you would just determine who they are, what's going on. You could do some microdosing with them and see how they react to that. You know, you can do a step up. And especially like when we're in the beginning part of the Ibogaine phases, that's where that functional dose is where you learn, you know, some people's functional dose is 0.25. Some people's is 1 gram.
Oh, interesting. I think for me, I would prefer to do it less often, but have a more spiritual experience with it. There's something about that just resonates with me. Maybe because it's like I like to feel and and have that experience, because it's such a beautiful. It's just such an amazing thing to be able to experience. It's almost as though everything's alive.
Right.
Right. Is that a good way to describe? I mean, you know, and I've experienced that with as little as like little over a gram, where it's just everything's alive. The colors are more vibrant. You can see that that grid almost a little bit. It's very spiritual. It's very. So I won't forget it because I was watching the Mike Tyson fight with Jake Paul with some friends over, and after the fight, I had taken some mushrooms and. A couple hours had gone by, and I was just in the middle of this just very spiritual, euphoric experience. And Soli's like, I'm going to go to bed. Do you want to come to bed? And I'm like, I can't go to bed. Everything's alive. Like, I'm looking outside. I was looking outside of our back glass door up at the sky. The stars were out. And like, I could see the constellations like coming together and like the trails of stars. I mean, it was spectacular. And for me, if I microdose, it sort of like dumbs that experience down a little bit.
But microdosing helps people, some people.
Yeah.
And in that, they don't want to.
Well, it helped me get to the
anything.
Ibogaine part. You know, it helped bridge that gap for sure.
Yeah.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, the microdosing.
Yeah.
It's important. I think a lot of people would feel a lot better without, you know, and when you use psilocybin is one of the best medicines to help try to get you off of other things. So if you're on an antidepressant and stuff like that, you can, you know, there's ways to do that if you call a practitioner and find out. they can help you get to the point where you can be clean enough to do plant medicine, because you can't do a lot of plant medicine when you have anything else in your system.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting, right? Like,
Right.
you had said no alcohol,
No alcohol.
like, no anxiety medication. Like, kind of have to be off all that stuff and be clear. Yeah.
And so that's what we do in that first part of that Ibogaine part. You know, we clean your body up. Then we give you that psilocybin at that functional dose, so you're flowing and your body's flowing and you're just. And then when we do that functional dose of the bark to get you to that next stage till you're ready to have medicine, that's working on your brain.
What would you say to somebody listening to this that right now in their minds they're thinking, well, gosh, but I don't want to get addicted to that?
You never get addicted to this. And I can't imagine anybody being addicted to this. Would you?
No.
No.
I mean, there's an appreciation for it, and there's a maybe desire to want to experience it again, but it's not like, you know, like with pain medicine, with Xanax or something like that. Like, you have to take it, otherwise you're getting sick.
Yeah, you're not. After you're done doing Ibogaine, you shouldn't have to do any of that. It depends on the person. Depends on what they're fighting. If it's a really, really active addiction, you might have to do a booster and take some bark. But you know, your practitioner will say, just take some bark. You can get through that part of it. You know, generally people don't have a lot of withdrawal stuff that they don't want to go back to it.
So I'm excited to talk about Ibogaine because it's been such a life changer for me, and we've been touching on it throughout the podcast here. But let's talk about it because this stuff is spectacular. It is something that is so it's actually not that hard to describe. I'm going to describe my experience here in a second, but for anybody listening that's like, what the hell is Ibogaine? Can you just kind of give a foundation where it comes from, you know, how long it's been around maybe, and what it's primarily used for? Okay,
so Ibogaine it comes from the bark of a tree. It comes from a tree in Africa, and the bark itself is called iboga.
Okay.
And we use iboga too. And in Africa, they actually do an iboga flood. I think a friend of mine said they do like 24 grams of bark. Well, it's a tough one.
Grams, okay.
You're chewing 24 grams of bark. Yeah. Yeah. The Ibogaine.
How many grams of bark did I take prior to the actual Ibogaine?
14.
I took
4. There were 4 that first night. That night right before I dosed you.
Yeah, 4. So you're saying they do 14?
They do 24.
Oh, Jesus. Okay. So to give you guys some perspective, so I had taken bark, it's literally tree bark, as like a powder that I had to put into these capsules. I had to weigh it out, and throughout the course, so I think I had woken up and I took 1 gram, okay, which I think was, I can't remember now if it was, I think it was 6 capsules approximately.
Probably, yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yeah.
So it's like 6 little, 6 little capsules, like you would take a vitamin or something. And, it just sort of slows you down a little bit.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it slows you down. You relax a little bit. You definitely feel more inside your body. But I remember her saying to me, by the end of the night, you're going to have taken 4 grams. So take 1 in the morning. You're going to take 3 grams later that night. And at first I thought that was the treatment. I didn't realize Ibogaine was something different, but there's a connection there. But so then that night I had taken 3 more grams all at the same time. So 1 in the morning, 3 more grams at night. And that was like, I just felt totally sedated, not in a negative way, in a good way. Just a very...
Kind of feels like a weighted blanket on you.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. Like a weighted blanket, just peaceful. Like, I don't care about anything, but completely in your body, completely present. And that was sort of the prerequisite for the Ibogaine. So,
and that's why we would like to do that preload for those 2 weeks. So you know what you're going to feel like. I can't, I actually just walked right into Ibogaine. I didn't have any bark prior to my first session. And so, that was pretty stark. You just head right in.
And so what have they found? Like, what does some of the research show right now with Ibogaine? And so you're saying they do this in West Africa in a village, and it's
the Bwiti tribe does it.
the Bwiti tribe.
Gabon.
Is it used as like a rite of passage? Did I hear that?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So for like teenagers or
Probably for them. Yeah.
Is it just boys or do girls do it?
I'm sure women do it too. A lot of that is not part of the study that, because I just haven't had contact in that. Now I have contact. Now I have, not with the tribe, but with people who have contact.
Okay.
So I can understand that part of it a little bit more. I can't imagine eating, 24 grams of bark, but
that's a lot.
I'm sure it's a lot different. There's a lot of more ceremonial kind of things.
Sure.
What I do is primarily healing. There are things I have to do ceremonially, the lights and the smoke and the music. That's really important for your journey. It's really important for you to get to that point. People actually, some hate the music at some point, but some people really love it. It just helps them.
I think I told you to turn it back on.
Yeah.
I liked it. Yeah, with the lights as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what's the difference between the bark and Ibogaine itself?
So Ibogaine is 10 times more strong than bark.
Okay.
So it's extracted at 10 times the
strength.
Extraction.
Okay. And so I know of it because of addiction. What are they finding people are using it for? Like, what are they using it for to treat right now?
To treat?
To treat.
If there's a practitioner, so there's not very many people that serve this medicine, just so you know.
My brother-in-law tried it. He had to go to Mexico.
Yeah. So I'm one of the only people throughout the States that would serve it. There are more people abroad that do it. But then you have also, if you don't speak Spanish, you've got some, they don't always have that integration like I would have with my plan. But
I couldn't have imagined doing it, by the way, without you there.
No.
There's no way. There's no way I would have lost my mind if I did it by myself. Like if I said, I can figure this out myself,
Yeah. And I often have people who call me and say I can do it. And I'm like, I don't think you can. And, if you can get a hold of the Ibogaine, it's almost impossible. You really have to have a practitioner. I would never tell anybody to do it any differently. It's not something you discovered. You'd know. It's even just the bark alone. You have to know what you're going to feel.
So can you describe what somebody might feel if they're taking Ibogaine?
At the first part of it, when we give the first dose, you're sitting in your bed and I've relaxed you with that 4 grams. And you may feel something and you may not. Some people are a little bit more in tune. Now that we've done this first protocol part that we're doing a lot more study on, we find that preload helps people get into the medicine a little quicker. Okay. We clean their bodies up so that medicine hits where it's supposed to hit and they actually experience what they need to. People who don't do this for addiction, this is really just, it's called an addiction eradicator. But it's a trauma reducer. Like it helps with people who have sexual trauma, who have been, have a lot of trauma in their body. All of that, it's amazing for that. I have special forces guys that I've done that kind of PTSD. That was one of the most amazing, miraculous sessions I had.
Tell us about it.
It was crazy. This young man found me because a client of mine had given my card to his therapist. Okay. And the therapist finally said, the young man said, I can't do this therapy thing anymore. And so this therapist gave him my card, not knowing. He said, this is done somewhere in another country. Just try this. I have a patient that did it. And what he was calling about was actually Kambo. And we realized you kind of need Ibogaine, because it was a trauma thing. It was PTSD. But his friend had studied this for 10 years, his friend Nick. And he's like, I want to do it too. So they did this together. And they both had some amazing, amazing things happen. But Nick had gone in just wanting to do this, what they call a psycho-spiritual. And it takes you down your spiritual path. You go and fight your ancestral battles and clear all that. And, because you're carrying all that stuff with you. And then he had all the trauma, the PTSD from the military. And he laid there and he said, I got up on that third day. And he said, I thought it was just because I was laying in bed, but I didn't have any pain. I came in with pain in my ankles and my back, and I just thought, well, it's just because I was laying down. And then on the fourth day, we were all sitting at the table talking, and his friends and Zach said, Nick, look at your finger. Well, Nick's finger had been bent like this for years due to a dog attack.
What? It was straightened?
Straightened.
Holy cow.
He's like, I didn't even notice.
Jeez.
But so many things have happened even since. He had scar tissue that's just healed in his body. His body works differently. He's just, and it was fun to hear these, because it's like, I just want to take away that trauma. That trauma is trauma, realize it, is what puts you in the position to take the drug anyway. So if we can break that away, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I've also heard that it has as high as a 90% efficacy rate with
if you
addiction.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have the proper care afterwards, yeah. And that's another thing that we're trying to focus on, is getting that aftercare training and Ibogaine facility all in one, that we can have a working facility that people can. You're a functioning person. You've done this all your life, but some people don't come to me like this. And so they have to have aftercare to rebuild those life skills and things like that.
Sure. I think that I think I was born this way, but I have this desire to always want to have an edge. I want to be better. And it's not about being better than somebody else. It's about being a better version of me. And some point along the line, I thought that, my experience with painkillers is when I would take them, I think with some people, they take them and they puts them to sleep, right? It kind of knocks them out. And for me, it did the exact opposite. I woke up, I had energy, I was super focused, I could work 24/7. I had the blinders on, so I didn't have to feel anybody else's bullshit. It was just like this laser focus miracle pill. So I thought.
For a little while.
Right? For a little while. And then the rest of the story, right? It turns into addiction, and it's horrific. And it's the last thing I would ever want anybody to experience. And oftentimes it can lead to death, like my buddy whose brother just overdosed. And I think what I find so fascinating about Ibogaine is that, my brother-in-law, he went through a session in Mexico, and he was highly, highly addicted to alcohol.
Right.
And I'm sure other things as well. He hasn't had a drink in a year and a half.
And you have to be 30 days clean.
30 days clean to do it with alcohol.
It's really hard.
But no drink for a year and a half. I'll talk about my story with it here in a second, but 60 days, a little over 60 days since I did the Ibogaine treatment. But the way I kind of think about it is if there's something out there that exists and it has the ability to give me as much of a 90% opportunity to not, and I'll tell you guys, there are no cravings.
Right.
The way I describe it is there's all of the mental image pictures that you kind of go through when you have the experience. Some of them are traumatic. Some of them are beautiful, but it's literally, imagine your eyes are closed. You're going through this endless filing cabinet of Polaroid pictures of every memory you've collected since even before you were born. But when
there's no emotion attached to any of it.
So now, yeah, but now, I mean, even if I try to think of, like, you know, if somebody's a cigarette smoker, they think, oh, if I have a cigarette, I'm going to relax, or whatever feeling that they get that they like from smoking a cigarette, they're going to link that to smoking a cigarette. Same thing with any drug, right? If I take this drug, I'm going to feel this way. I don't have that ability anymore. It's the craziest thing. Like, even when I try to think of it, right? Everything I just mentioned about taking a painkiller and the benefits I thought that it was giving me, I don't have the ability to link the feeling to taking a painkiller because those mental image pictures aren't there. There's no emotional connection to it.
Right. There's no emotion attached to it anymore.
So even when I try to think of it, it's literally a split second. My brain just goes, well, that's silly. What? Like, and it's like reroutes me.
And that's the
to
pause.
Something different. That's the pause.
That's the pause I talk about.
I mean, it's the craziest thing, guys. But okay, you describe the experience and then I'll describe my experience.
The experience.
Like, if somebody's going to take Ibogaine,
okay, yeah.
Talk about how long they're going to be invested in this thing and what they can experience.
I like to have my clients for 6 weeks.
Yep.
And they're coming to me hopefully clean, but if not, trying to get to the point where they are clean. 2 weeks of a liver cleanse, then I do 2 weeks of psilocybin, then we do 2 weeks of ARC, and then we start. And what you're going to feel in the beginning of that, because we've prepped your body, you're already slowed down, you already have that little bit of that pause. And then we give the first dose, and you will start feeling, you'll start hearing the cicadas, that noise.
That's right.
And that's the blood flow that's going through your brain. But you're hearing those cicadas, and it closes off everything else that's going on in your head. You can't think straight. All you hear is this noise. Then that music comes in, and it starts making the beat and the pounding, and that pounding is pounding that trauma through. So what's happening in Ibogaine is your body's slowed down, and that trauma is rising up through your muscles. Every day we do something, that trauma sticks in our muscles. And so what Ibogaine does is it sits you down for a little bit. You can't move. It makes you ataxic. So you would kind of get sick if you move your head too fast or something.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of rules in Ibogaine, and I think I say the rules about 195 times until my client finally says, oh, that's what you meant.
Yeah.
But so that trauma is rising to the top of your muscles, okay? It's just, and we have a lot of extra movements in our bodies that we don't need. You can tell someone that's traumatized because they have extra movements that they make all the time because they just don't want to release that trauma. Trauma comes out in your dreams, when you're in your nightmares, when your body is so relaxed. That's when that comes out and starts filling in your brain. And so we're releasing that trauma, and it's going to the top of your muscles, okay? And then you can expect to spend 5 days in the session with me, and I'm there the whole time. 3 of those days are called gray days, and you're in the medicine, and it's very gray. You're there. You can walk around sometimes. You can sit on the couch. It's not the same couch.
Yeah.
You don't even know where you are sometimes. You're going through these phases, these memories that you're going through, and it's applying in all those situations. You'll have light sensitivity. You'll have sound sensitivity. And so that's why people are staying in a room most of the time, because there's a lot going on.
Sure.
Everything's wide open. We've opened everything up so that we can release all those toxins and then close it back up and put it back. So took that distributor cap off the top of our brain. Those wires are freaking out. Now Ibogaine's going to put that back on and click that on again. And you're clear.
After they clean it out, right?
But you're clear, right? Your brain is so much more clear. It's
crazy.
like, where did all that noise go?
That's the thing. It's like, it's subtle but super profound, because there have been moments where I just, like, I mean, I think even a few days ago, I'm sitting at the dinner table and I was just sort of like, doing one of these, or it looked like I was in deep thought, or I was staring off into space or something. And Soli says, "What are you thinking about?" I said, "Nothing." You know, it's like you don't realize how much chatter you have and how many like different versions of conversations you're going through all day long. But when that shit's gone, I mean, the amount of peace that you get, that you have. And how many things you can do.
How many things you can do.
Yeah.
Because you don't have that clutter in your head. You know?
So about 5 days total. Walk us through the actual experience itself, which is about
of the 5 days.
Well, sure,
or the 6 weeks.
But the actual like Ibogaine, while you're in the medicine for that 6-8 hours or whatever before it turns in, before you're out of like the visuals and the actual like physical and psychedelic experience.
Yeah, you can see lots of things. I mean, you're not. The visuals that you're talking about, some people describe them as almost, I've had clients tell me there was actually people in my room. And I'm like, no, I'm the only one here with you. But it's so physical. They have such physical experiences. Had a client come out and say, I just called everybody on my phone and told them that I was arrested. And I'm like, no, you didn't. Like, you have no access to the phone.
But he thought...
Yeah, she absolutely thought that she was going to be arrested and they were going to have to get bail money. It's all that trauma that's going through your head. And that's why you want a good facilitator, so they can say, hey, everything's okay. You got this.
Absolutely.
So you're going to go through a lot of that. You'll see a lot of things. I can't explain what everybody sees because everybody's experience is different. A lot of what people explain is that they see pictures on walls, pictures in cabinets, pictures, and they go to reach for the picture and it disappears. So you're just blowing your trauma out of the water at that point. And it's frustrating for the client at that point because you don't have, you can't talk sometimes. So sometimes clients think they talk. Sometimes they think they call me and say they have to go to the bathroom, but there's no words. I mean, I'm right there. So
I think that was me.
Yeah.
And you're like, you didn't say anything.
All of them
like,
do.
Really? I swear I did, but
it sounds like in your head, it feels like you're screaming it.
I would imagine there's some similarities and differences with everybody, but yeah, for me, there were two different versions of the experience. I think like as far as like really in the medicine, like the full like physical and visual experience was what, 6 to 8 hours?
Oh yeah.
Something like that. And which is a long freaking time. Right?
Because
and
it's intense. It's not little.
Yeah. And you don't have the ability to turn it off. So I remember when I first noticed something and I was like, is that the medicine? Because I'm laying in bed. There's this like, how would you describe these like, not neon
it's a
lights,
lunar,
but
it's a lunar,
like a lunar
star
visual light thing that she has on with really cool music, by the way.
It's Bweedy music.
That was Bweedy music. Okay. So I'm laying there and I had taken this first capsule and I don't think it was, I mean, it must have been within a half hour, I think. And all of a sudden I'm looking at the ceiling and they're kind of like these ceiling boards in that room I was in. And I'm like, was that like a tiger? What was that? But I'm like, I'm pretty sure that, and then all of a sudden as it gets into the bloodstream more, I mean, I was seeing full blown like movies, like a TV show almost. I mean, I was in Greece, I was in Rome. Some of these movie scenes I was in. So I was like seeing myself. I was seeing lots of animals, lots of different animals, like I was in the bush or something, which makes sense if it comes from Africa, I suppose. But then
you could be living things from your ancestors.
Yeah.
So when you do Ibogaine, you're not only breaking your addictions and things, you're breaking ancestral chains and people that in front of you. So your kids are going to have a better way of life because they know they don't have to have that. You've already broken that chain.
That's cool.
And that's why I did Ibogaine. I wanted to make sure that my daughter got better. And if I couldn't help my daughter, I could help someone else's daughter. And this isn't just the one person that's affected. You know, the entire family suffers. So you're healing the whole family. You know, you go in and I've talked to your wife, and, you know, I've met your children, and
it's crazy.
you can see just in the few days that you were done with Ibogaine how your family changed, how the network of it changed, because you've lost all of that toxin. It's gone.
Way more connection with my kids, with my wife. I mean, it's really remarkable. But my experience when my eyes were open was that just highly visual, in some cases like cartoonish kind of situations going on, but like really visual. I don't know how else to describe it. When I closed my eyes, that's when I saw the filing cabinet with all the Polaroids. And it's interesting you say that. That's like, you know, you kind of reach for it and that's like evaporates or whatever. That's the trauma being released, because there were times where I was like, dang it, I want to be able to like sit there and pause with that moment. And I had a hard time doing that in some cases, but I went through this just endless Rolodex of different mental image pictures. And then there was another time where, and what's interesting too is like you have some level of awareness, right? Like I knew I was in bed, I knew I was in the room, I could sense when I had to go to the bathroom, but when I opened my eyes and I looked out of the door into that like back room, that's where I saw my ancestors, and it was like there was a group of people hanging out in my house, and what they would do is it was like they were talking, and then they'd look at me and I'd see their face, you know, and it was I saw a woman with a burqa, I saw an old man that was bald, I saw all these different individuals, and then they'd kind of turn and look at me and walk down the hallway. But it was a very real experience. And then the physical aspect of it, I think, was like, looking back, it's the part of it that makes it difficult, but it's also, I don't really know how to, but there's also like a fondness of it in some weird, strange way, because they were like these, you call them tracers, right? I just experienced this like electrical force field. I could see different colors. It was like this electrical current going around my entire body. And anytime I would move too quickly, I got super nauseous. So it forced you to go super, super, super slow. I think I had to throw up once, but it wasn't like some massive.
So you're not going to purge anything. There's really nothing in your system. Really you're not drinking or eating anything at that time. Those 5 days, you're pretty slow on all of your functions.
Yeah, just an amazing experience, and the fact that it cleans out the electrical. Can you describe that? I love the way you describe that.
Like the distributor cap?
Yeah, like, well...
It just pushes all that, it pushes all that stuff up to the top of your muscles, like like the foam on a soup.
I don't know if it was you or if it was Carrie describing, like the corrosion on the electrical circuit and how this sort of like cleans the corrosion.
Yep, it just cleans all those wires off, and then it replugs them in. Yeah. And so that's why the recovery from Ibogaine is a year. But you're recovered, yes. But each and every day your brain is changing. So we've taken your brain that has all this dust in those crevices, and we blew all that dust out. Pretty much. Just blew the dust out.
So again, if you're somebody that struggles with addiction, or you have a loved one that struggles with it, I couldn't highly recommend Shawn enough. Like, even if you just have questions, or you're calling for a friend kind of a situation, please reach out to her. I mean, this stuff it's just life-changing, and there's I could just try to describe all the stories, but I think it's one of those things where, if you're at a point where it's like, man, we've tried everything else, or man, I've been struggling with this for 20 years, that type of situation, and there's a piece of you that knows you're meant for more, that's being held back. In my opinion, this is the thing that'll give you the edge. This is the thing that'll give you the edge and give you a better sense of purpose and connection. And like Shawn said, heal your family too. It's not just you, it's you're healing everybody else around you as a result of you taking care of yourself and doing something that, albeit might seem a little, different. So that's why it's like, do your own research, talk to somebody who really understands it, and get your questions answered. Last thing before we wrap up, do you want to touch on Bufo at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like I was talking about that foam that goes to the top of your muscles. Mm-hmm. The last day, now we're doing a different protocol, but the last day of me being there, that 5th day, I give you Bufo. Mm-hmm. And what Bufo does, on that 4th day, you've pretty much gone back to normal. You might have some tracers and stuff, but you're pretty normal. But on that 5th day, I give you Bufo, and Bufo is from an amazing toad, the Colorado toad, and what it does is it takes that foam that was at the top of your muscles and your ego, and it blows it out of your system. Takes you to heaven, and then it brings you down a little bit, and you pass a little bit through some trauma sometimes. You're pushing out some stuff, but then it takes you right back up to heaven, and you get to feel what it's like to be with God. Mm-hmm. It's pretty amazing.
I'll just tell you, like, to hear somebody say that is just like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're going to be with God. But
I know. People always think I talk weird.
But she's right. Like, that is the best way to describe it, is you are experiencing what it's like to be connected to your source, to God, to spirit. And it's just, I think, when I came out of that, the only thing I could say was, wow, with a huge smile on my face.
There's no words.
Yeah, there's no words. It's just something you have to experience.
You absolutely do. Yeah. No, it's, and then, I'm there afterwards. Mm-hmm. If people need help, they can call me.
And I think this is exactly what people need. They need somebody that understands it, that's experienced it, that, you work with somebody that's in the medical profession as well. So, which I think she's fantastic. She understands kind of that side of it, right? So if you come from a more Western philosophy with medicine, then, I think working with Shawn and Carrie, it's a great combination, just kind of ease your concerns on both sides. So anyway, where can people find you?
They can find me at Kambo, DenverColorado.com.
How do you spell it?
Kambo, DenverColorado.com.
Cool.
That's where my website is, and that has my email address and my phone number, and I'm happy to help.
Sweet.
Every time that I see a limit, I push right past it. Don't care if you got here first, the one to win is the last one standing. Say my life is like luck, nah, I had to plan it. The way I work is out of this earth. I can feel the momentum. Need it all, no fractions. Dream it, then I gotta have it in the booth like Tom Cruise. Whole lot of